The Inner Citadel, a timeless protocol for human flourishing and sovereign living. Chapter 3. The Interplay of Thought, Feeling, and Action, Reshaping Your Inner Landscape. Your thoughts shape your emotions, and together they guide your actions. This fundamental interplay forms the living mechanism through which you experience and create your daily reality. By understanding and gently directing this cycle, you gain the power to transform unhelpful patterns into sources of clarity, steadiness, and constructive movement. Everything needed for this reshaping already resides within you. The capacity to observe, question, and choose anew is part of your inherent human endowment. No external devices or purchases are required. Consistent, honest attention to your own mind is the only tool. At its simplest, the process unfolds in a continuous loop. A thought arises, often automatically, and colors how you feel. That feeling then influences the actions you take or avoid. For example, the thought, "This situation is overwhelming and beyond my ability," may generate a sense of anxiety or helplessness. In turn, anxiety might lead to procrastination, withdrawal, or hasty decisions that reinforce the original belief. The cycle perpetuates itself unless interrupted with awareness. The good news is that this chain is not fixed. Thoughts are not absolute truths. They are interpretations that can be examined, tested, and revised toward more balanced and useful perspectives. This understanding draws from broad, timeless observations about human psychology. Early philosophers and observers of the mind noted that much of our distress stems not from events themselves, but from the stories we tell about them. A neutral occurrence, such as receiving feedback on a project, can be interpreted as devastating criticism or as valuable information for improvement. The interpretation, more than the event, determines the emotional response and subsequent behavior. Recognizing this gives you leverage. You cannot always prevent the initial thought from appearing, but you can choose whether to accept it unchallenged or to engage it with reason and curiosity. To begin reshaping your inner landscape, cultivate the habit of mindful observation. When a strong emotion surfaces, frustration, fear, excitement, or sadness, pause briefly if possible. Ask yourself, what thought or interpretation is fueling this feeling right now? Trace it gently, without harsh judgment. Suppose you feel irritation during a conversation. The underlying thought might be, "They are disrespecting me," or "I am not being heard." Once identified, test that thought against available evidence. Is it entirely accurate? Does it consider the full context, including the other person's possible pressures or misunderstandings? Could there be alternative explanations that are equally or more plausible? This gentle testing is the heart of cognitive redirection. Replace an exaggerated or unhelpful interpretation with one that is more realistic and constructive. Instead of "this proves I am incompetent," consider "this is a single moment that highlights an area where I can learn and strengthen my approach." The new thought tends to soften the emotional intensity, opening space for calmer, more effective actions, such as asking clarifying questions, seeking feedback, or simply taking a measured step forward. Over repeated practice, the loop shifts. Balanced thoughts foster steadier emotions, which support wiser actions, which in turn reinforce more helpful thinking patterns. Practical examples illustrate how this works across common life situations. In relationships, the thought, "My partner never appreciates what I do," can breed resentment and lead to withdrawal or sharp words. By examining it, recalling specific instances of appreciation that may have been overlooked, and recognizing that never is an absolute that rarely holds, you might reframe to, "I feel undervalued in this moment, and I can express my needs clearly." The resulting emotion softens from bitterness to a desire for connection, prompting an action like an honest conversation, rather than silent accumulation of hurt. Similarly, in pursuits of personal goals, the automatic thought, "I always fail at this," can paralyze effort. Testing it reveals past successes or partial progress, allowing a shift to each attempt teaches me something useful for the next try. Motivation returns, and small, consistent actions become possible again. The process also applies to positive emotions, amplifying their constructive power. When joy or confidence arises, pause to notice the supporting thoughts. I handled that well, or this aligns with what matters to me. Reinforce these by savoring them fully and linking them to deliberate actions, such as sharing the positive moment or building on the momentum. In this way, the thought-feeling-action cycle becomes a generator of upward spirals rather than downward ones. Building skill in this interplay requires patience and repetition, much like strengthening any capacity. Start small. Choose one recurring emotional pattern, perhaps anxiety before important tasks, impatience in traffic, or self-doubt after setbacks. For 1 week, commit to observing it each time it appears. Simply name the feeling and the thought behind it, even if you do nothing more. Awareness alone often begins to loosen the pattern's grip. In the following week, introduce gentle testing and reframing. Keep a quiet mental note, or if helpful, jot a few words in a simple notebook at day's end, summarizing what you observed and any new perspective you tried. Notice how even minor shifts reduce the intensity or duration of unhelpful states. Common obstacles may arise during practice. The mind can resist by claiming, "This thought is just the truth," or "I can't help how I feel." Acknowledge these defenses kindly. They are themselves thoughts that can be examined. Remind yourself that the goal is not to suppress feelings or force false positivity, but to align your inner responses more closely with reality and your deeper values. Feelings remain valid signals. The practice teaches you to respond to them rather than be ruled by them. Another challenge is habitual speed. Thoughts and emotions can cascade quickly. Counter this by creating small pauses throughout the day. A few conscious breaths, a moment of stillness, or a simple reminder phrase such as, "What am I telling myself right now?" As proficiency grows, the benefits compound. You experience greater emotional steadiness amid life's inevitable ups and downs. Decisions improve because they stem from clearer perspectives rather than reactive moods. Relationships deepen as you bring less projection and more presence. Productivity rises when energy previously drained by rumination is redirected toward meaningful effort. Most importantly, you develop a quiet confidence in your ability to navigate internal storms. The inner landscape becomes less a chaotic wilderness and more a cultivated garden that you tend with care and intention. This chapter's principles integrate naturally with the foundation laid in earlier sections. Once you clearly distinguish what you can and cannot control, you apply the same discernment to your thoughts. Focus effort on reshaping interpretations that lie within your influence, and accept initial emotional reactions as passing events. The interplay of thought, feeling, and action thus becomes a daily practice of sovereignty, claiming authority over the one realm that is truly yours. Everything required is already within you. The capacity for self-observation, rational inquiry, and compassionate redirection is part of your natural mental equipment. These words serve only as a mirror, reflecting back the tools you have always possessed. Return to them as needed for reminders, but the real work happens in the quiet moments of daily living. When you catch an unhelpful thought, test it gently, and choose a more balanced path forward. To deepen the practice further, consider weaving it into routine activities. During a walk or commute, use the time to review a recent emotional episode and explore alternative views. Before sleep, reflect on one instance where the cycle played out helpfully or where a small shift might have changed the outcome. Over months, these accumulated moments of awareness create lasting change. The mind grows more flexible, emotions more manageable, and actions more aligned with the life you wish to live. In essence, reshaping your inner landscape is an act of quiet mastery. It does not promise a life without difficulty or discomfort. Such a promise would be unrealistic. Instead, it offers the ability to meet whatever arises with greater skill, perspective, and freedom. By attending to the interplay of thought, feeling, and action, you become the active shaper of your experience, rather than a passive recipient of it. This is the path to a more resilient, purposeful, and flourishing existence, available to you here and now, through the simple, profound power of your own awareness and choice.